Good morning and welcome, sir.
Good morning and thank you for the invitation.
So, Finnish border with Russia, 1,340 kilometers long. The Finns are saying that they don't need any additional fortification because they have a different strategy. What is the strategy and how viable is it?
Truly, we answer this question when we count the length of the border with Russia. When we think about the fortification from the old style type, we need to think about the large investments in this long border without any promises to achieve main goals from the operational level to strategic level. So our Finns are trying to build their defense mostly on this strategic and operational awareness coming from the territorial forces and the combination between the enlarge of the armed forces in very fast circle of mobilization and in the context of the specific of their territory. So we have a combination of their own armed forces and operations in very difficult and sometimes very hard forms of terrain against any forms of aggression from outside. So this is a different environment. This is the different situation, and that's why we cannot always copy paste some systems and put into the different places. Even in Europe, when we think about, for instance, the presence situation in Baltic states, Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia. So I think we have here a very clear answer because of this long border with Russia. They cannot afford to build the conventional forms of fortification, but they are investing in a lot of things dedicated to strengthen the defense posture when we think about infrastructure, when we think about using civilian forms of infrastructure, for instance, for the air forces. They are very well in strengthening capabilities of their air forces by using highways and roads to take off the fighter jets. So this is also a kind of a gray situation that they are investing in infrastructure, but not in very conventional form of fortifications.
Right, sir. But I mean, Finland is a member of the EU and now also a member of NATO. So it is not only their border, right? I mean, so shall this sort of the way that it is being protected be sort of somehow agreed upon by a wider collective of these other countries?
Thank you for this question. It's a great question, and we need to emphasize the answer for this. With enlargement of NATO toward Finland and Sweden, we received not only a very good and very effective armies from both states, we also built these bridges to strengthen their own defense posture by sending reinforcements from other members and NATO members. That's why right now this is a very important task to build this interoperability between 32 member states, also in the context of the Finnish defense. Why it's so difficult? First of all, we need to learn this terrain. We need to learn Finnish partners. Of course, Finland been very close to NATO members and trained alongside some of NATO members before the accession. But right now, we need to put this into the framework of the NATO plans and procedures. And this is, of course, some pressure on our side, on NATO side, but on the other hand, we need to see the situation inside Finland. They also need to invest in so-called host nation mission, like Poland. It is dedicated to build this infrastructure, procedures, and also plans to get reinforcements, to get other members, armed forces, and also connect them with their own forces in the context of the crisis, in the context of even the war border when we think right now about the very sophisticated European security architecture. So, of course, this is right now the complex of NATO issues when we think about the Finnish-Russian border. But on the other hand, I'm very optimistic about it because, as I mentioned before, Finland been very well prepared for defense of their own land because of their neutrality, and neutrality is always connected with strengthening their own armed forces. And they've been very close to the NATO members, to the Western standards. They know very well how to train, how to fight alongside Western, for instance, other NATO members, not only Western European states, of course. But of course, from the political side, this is our own task to strengthen Finnish partner, and that's why this collective defense is so important for all of the NATO members, because we are having right now capabilities and capacity to strengthen each other and to act when we are under the pressure, not only from the Russian side, but also from other threats we are dealing with in 21st century.
Sir, and could we perhaps compare and contrast, I mean, the Finnish strategy to what Poland's Eastern Shield really will include? I mean, these are sort of different approaches, right? But I wonder what are some of these differences, and sort of, because of course Poland doesn't have such a natural environment as Finland does, right? But
I think we need to get some lessons learned from there. As I mentioned before, we cannot copy-paste all of that, but total defense concept is a great answer for us. We can mix this with so-called Eastern fortifications, Eastern strengthening Eastern our Eastern border, because we are dealing right now with two different scenarios which are really visible right now on our border with Belarus and also Krulevets Oblast. So first is, of course, potential military aggression with full-scale actions. Of course, the risk of that is lower because we are in NATO, because we are making some moves inside NATO to strengthen our posture on the eastern flank. But on the other hand, we always need to have this in our mind. That's why we need to build some infrastructure to, for instance, slow down or even block potential aggressor maneuver columns and also their actions on our soil. On the other hand, we need to counter against some operation below the threshold of war with migration, this fake migration process, which is the part of some hybrid forms of operations against not only Poland but also Latvia and Lithuania, and also against the whole European Union and NATO members. That's why we need to have also the combination of typical defenses, typical surveillance methods, and also ISR capabilities, intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance capabilities, and mix of more conventional forms of fortification. But what is the lesson learned coming from Finland? This action, which is congregate all of the citizens. We need to see that Finland has a lower level of potential population to strengthen the defense. That's why they need to be very smart in using what they have. So the first thing is, of course, the mobilization. They have a very impressive form of mobilization. They can enlarge army very fast, very quickly, based on this territorial form of service. So they have the situational awareness from the tactical to operational side. They can work alongside other law enforcement structures and the civilian population. On the other hand, we can get this form of cooperation with partners, regional partners. Finland is well prepared, for instance, to take some cooperation with Swedish partner, so with Sweden. So we can get this total defense mobilization forms from Finland, of course, and we need to modify this toward our own pace of working with soldiers, with other institutions. So, as I mentioned before, and I will highlight this every time, we cannot copy-paste the Finnish system. We can get some of the parts and use them to strengthen our own capabilities here. But when we even compare this length of our border with Belarus and Krulevets, it is something really different than a very long border, different border with a different environment between Finland and Russia. And even the Russian forms of military presence is different alongside this border compared to the Krulevets, compared to the Russian presence in Belarus right now.
So let me ask you about one last thing. I mean, we have this NATO Parliamentary Assembly meeting in Sofia starting, tomorrow. And then, of course, we have NATO Summit in Washington coming up. Are we expecting any shifts or sort of modifications to the way that NATO is trying to protect itself and the eastern flank, perhaps after the Washington Summit?
Truly, I'm always emphasizing that the NATO summits and also other meetings are dedicated to, for instance, parliamentary members or Ministry of Defense, etc., are always dedicated to save this action coming from the different posture of NATO after the first Russian aggression in 2014 aggression against Ukraine, of course. I'm not waiting for any kind of a revolution, because we cannot afford to have a revolution. This is a 32 member states structure with a lot of shifts inside, and we need to accept this. So I hope we will have a NATO summit in Washington dedicated to implementation. And I think this is the key word for the next summits and also other meetings. Implementation. Right now, we have achieved fantastic things dedicated to operational level, to strategic level. And we need to fulfill our gaps. We need to implement this from the practical side. From the military production to preparedness of our own units, which are right now put in our plans. Of course, this is the clandestine form of NATO function. But we can accept that right now implementation is our main task. Implementation of strengthening our capabilities, building capacity, building numbers, connecting this quality and quantity factors in our armed forces. So I hope Washington summit will be the implementation summit, will be another chapter of strengthening, of course, NATO presence on the eastern flank, but also building other things for the long term, countering different threats, as I mentioned before, because this is not only the full scale Russian aggression hypothesis, of course, but other forms of Russian and Belarusian, for instance, forms of attacking us, attacking our soil, attacking our cyber systems, etc.
Jacek Raubo, Defense 24, thank you, sir, for being with us this morning and for your insights.
Thank you very much.